Welcome to the Appetite for Discussion show with your host, Brendan Crouch.
Thank you, Julius, and thank you again to States Vegas Radio for another episode of Appetite for Discussion. Today, Mr. Parks Collins and Bill Day is going to teach us about dirt and bacteria and viruses and Yellowstone and all kinds of cool stuff that I am nowhere near qualified to talk about, so I'm not going to. I'm going to let you do it.
No, we appreciate you having us.
Yeah, man, thanks. Appreciate it.
So let me give you some backstory. So probably, I guess 10 years ago now, we kind of decided in our lab at Mitchell, we do kind of two things.
So you're a professor, a teacher?
Right. I teach in the natural science department there.
So can I call you professor?
You can call me whatever you want to call me. Yeah.
I think for this we're going to call you Professor Parks.
Okay.
I like it.
Okay. All right. So we do a couple things. We decided that, opposed to your typical biology class where you come in and you come to lab, and you're given a sheet of paper and you're saying, hey, do this lab, look for this color change. Your typical, what they might call cookie cutter labs.
Right, yeah.
That why not let students be scientists and do real research, even at an undergraduate level?
Yeah.
So we do a couple things. We work with a lot of camera traps. You familiar? Trail cameras,
like hunters would use.
Yeah. So we use a lot of camera traps to study animal movement patterns.
I have those. It's called a baby monitor.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right. I have those animal traps. Yeah, I got them.
Wildlife cameras for the house.
You could plant those outside. See what sounds you pick up. No, but we've got them. We've had them for about 10 years now, planted all around Statesville. Bill was maybe one of the first ones to record animal movements along our greenway trails, our nice greenway system.
Yeah, that was years ago.
That was a long time.
That camera, I set that out. It was probably 2010, maybe earlier than that, and a big flood came.
Yeah,
and you could just see the pictures of the flood waters rising. Then the camera went dark at that point because I believe that one got destroyed.
But it's interesting because it allows you. I mean, you use cameras like that. It's a non-invasive way. It allows you to track animals. They typically, depending on what camera you get, they don't know you're there. But using the little timestamp, you can do lots of cool data analyses and find out how they're moving, find out where they're moving. Sometimes you can.
So are you tracking anything specific or just whatever comes along the trail or in front of the camera?
Whatever comes along. But it's really turned into looking at coyotes in urban environments. So
let's dive into those coyotes.
Let's dive into coyotes.
Do we have a coyote problem in Iredell County, Statesville?
Well, define what you mean by problem.
A lot of them. Well, are there? Because I feel like we see people report coyotes on what's it called, Nextdoor app. If you're a part of that, coyote sighting, over there in Dogwood Hills or East Broad Street and this and that. And when you grow up, it's always like coyotes are going to eat your small animals and they're going to eat your children. So don't leave them in the backyard unattended.
Right. So I don't know if you remember, this may have been just several years ago when it seemed like the several articles in the paper that came out about coyote sightings in Statesville. It was on the news. I mean, all over the place, it seemed like. So to answer your question, I guess it depends on who you are, but no, there's not a coyote problem. Coyotes have been here for a while.
Or is it overpopulated maybe with coyotes?
It's difficult to answer too because coyotes here in Iredell County don't really have a predator. I mean, they are kind of the apex predator.
Yeah, right.
And so coyotes have an interesting story though, because we have coyotes that started Rocky Mountain Western coyotes, and then probably over the last 100 years, they moved eastward, and they moved in two different directions. So they came up north, and then they came down south through Texas, and then got to North Carolina, Iredell County, probably about early 1980s, and took over the area. So there's all sorts of conspiracy theories about how they got here. The government bringing them in. Truth is, they got here naturally, and kind of took over the role that our red wolf used to play. We used to have red wolves all over the state.
So let's say that the conspiracy was true. Why would the government bring coyotes to Iredell County?
Okay, so if you look at, I think it's I want to speak out of turn here. Fish and Wildlife, some of their publications say that there were some coyotes brought in from Virginia
Yeah.
right before Hurricane Hugo to help with fox hunting or something.
So will the coyotes
And-
actually hunt the fox?
And then or to help with training or something. But
Okay.
along those lines, Hurricane Hugo came in, knocked down the fences, coyotes got out, and that's how they're here.
Gotcha.
But that doesn't explain how they're in every county in North Carolina now.
Right.
So they're playing a definite role in the ecosystem.
Mhm.
I think coyotes are maybe the one of two animals that are they're a nuisance just because they're present. The other one may be cockroach, right? They haven't.
Yes.
I mean, they haven't hurt anything. I mean, unless you're the one that got your cat taken. But there's a cool study out of inner city Chicago. So imagine this. Study in Chicago has been going on for the last 15 years now, where there's a guy who tracks them. He puts GPS collars on coyotes. Estimates there's about 1,500 to 2,000 inside city limits, Chicago, roaming around in the city. And so they've done all sorts of scat tests where they looked at their poo and to determine what they're eating. And about 1% of their diet is made up of cats, pet cats.
So they're really just
that's-
eating garbage, really.
They're really eating rabbits, rodents. So a lot of their diet here in Idaho County, rabbits.
Because they are a predator, right?
Oh, they are.
But they're aggressive too, are they not?
Well, they're not really. More than anything, I would say on the most part, they're paranoid of people. So it's a good idea to shout at them if you see them. But I mean, think about it. We see these tweets, we see these announcements that people are seeing coyotes.
Yep.
But how many? I mean, have you ever seen one in the daytime in Statesville running around?
I think I have maybe once, but it could have been a dog. So I'm
Right,
not 100%
right.
sure. But I definitely hear them.
Right. So
Yeah.
so think about that. They do such a good job at hiding in plain sight. It's unreal. I mean, how adaptable they are.
Because they're going to kill you. They're assassins, Parks. That's why.
Right. Right.
So, but you always worry too. You always heard coyotes carry rabies. They're rabies carrying animals.
Oh, interesting. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, you're welcome.
We have a chapter about coyotes in our book that actually shows some research that the rabies is an interesting virus. Hey, this can lead us into viruses.
Man,
So
let's get there.
so
We'll go everywhere, man.
the main source of rabies comes from our raccoon population. So there's a raccoon associated rabies virus. There was a small population of coyotes that actually had a source of rabies that originated in that coyote population in Southwest Texas.
Uh-huh.
But for the most part, we don't see rabies that start out in coyotes. The raccoon rabies virus spills over into the coyote population occasionally.
Okay.
But because we can see this from our data too, raccoons and coyotes tend to not show up at our camera traps at the same time. I don't know why that is. I don't know if they know to avoid each other.
Could be.
But you see a lot of rabies, of course, more so in your gray and red foxes, in raccoons, but not so much in coyotes. So I'm not sure where the fear comes from, but it may come from the fact that coyotes are really closely related to our wolves, and maybe, I mean, every nursery rhyme you've ever read, who's the bad guy?
It's the wolf.
It's the wolf.
So what is, that was a question I was going to ask you, and we'll get back to the book and virus and rabies and whatnot, but a coyote is really a cross, right, between a dog and a wolf? Is that
So-
right or no?
So what's interesting is some genetic studies have been done that show, depending on what population you're talking about, if you're talking about a western coyote, those are typically almost all 100% coyote. But so we talked about the coyotes moving.
Yeah.
As they move through Texas, so we have kind of the deep south coyotes. They're a little more coyote. But what we see is seeing this genetic crossing between coyotes, our gray wolf, which is the American timber wolf, and then domestic dogs. So coyote's scientific name is Canis latrans, but I've heard more people say it should be Canis supus, right? Because you've got this mixture of dog and wolf.
We can make
genes.
jokes about either one you want. That's
we
fine.
can. We can. So what we see is northeastern coyotes are typically larger because they've bred with wolves. So this is a coyote skull. This is coyote skull from the New River.
And for those who are listening to the podcast and not watching on YouTube, you're actually holding. Yeah, what is that? Was that a bullet hole?
That is.
So this is a coyote skull, right?
So that's coyote. That's our eastern coyote, which is probably 35 to 55 pounds.
Oh, really?
Our coyote here in Iredell County probably has 4 to 5% wolf, but maybe 13 to 15% domestic dog genes. So there was an inbreeding event.
You know, I was going to say I was actually. I mean, these are some gnarly things, but I was expecting maybe even worse. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to get bit by it, but
Right. But compare that to Canis lupus here, which is our gray wolf. I mean, that's.
Oh, this bad boy's doing some damage.
Yeah.
You, sir, if this guy comes after you, you have had a bad day.
Yes.
Yeah, this is. Look at that. That is.
So we've
coming to get
actually
you.
we can backtrack in a second, but we've seen these two. Bill, tell them about the time in Yellowstone we saw these two interact over several times.
Yeah. So when we're in Yellowstone, I mean, you never know what you're going to see. You may see bears, wolves, coyotes, but rarely do you get to see two animals interacting at the same time. Like a lot of the times you'll see a dead bison,
Yeah.
a carcass of some sort, or elk or mule deer, and you'll see one come up and then another one come up. Usually there's a hierarchy: bears, wolves, coyotes, eagles, ravens, things like that. Well, we just were driving along the road, and all of a sudden we see a black wolf cross the road. It comes across, and then all of a sudden we see two coyotes on the other side of the valley, and they're coming, and we could see them, and we're like, okay, they're going to meet. We're going to see some interaction.
Oh, what's about to happen?
And everybody, of course, we stop the car, get in and pull off, get our spotting scopes out, start videoing. Parks has got a great video set up on his spotting scope. So, so this big wolf is probably 3 times the size of the coyotes, comes on, and they're kind of going out, a little standoff.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, who do you think wins? It's not the big wolf, man. The coyotes got angry and ran him off. And that's because we believe he was a juvenile wolf. Okay. Wasn't that the key? I mean, he wasn't as aggressive as I'm sure the alpha would have been.
Imagine, think about the size difference.
Oh, it's huge.
I mean, you've got, 150-pound wolf.
Yeah.
Maybe a 35-pound coyote. So there's a wolf print right there. That's a big dog.
So this is a wolf?
That's a wolf print, right.
It's a bear. I mean, for those of you who can see this at home, I mean, look at that. That is legit. Dude, if I come home and I see this footprint in the yard,
you better call Iredell County Animal Control.
Yeah, and they're gonna. That dude's gonna shit his pants. He's gonna be like, we don't see that much around here.
Right, but here's the thing though. So these wolves, along with their cousin the coyotes, they're skittish. So we've never hiked in Yellowstone and come across a wolf. They're skittish of people.
Okay.
Typically, now unless you're feeding it and it knows to come to you for food. But if you're a coyote in Yellowstone, wolves typically they don't do well with coyotes. They don't tolerate them.
They'll actually hunt down their dens and kill their pups.
They won't kill them to eat them. They'll kill them to kill them.
And leave them for dead.
Wait a minute. Why are we doing that? I mean, so they're killing their own pups.
No, the wolves are killing the coyote pups.
Oh, okay. All right. I was like, wait a minute. I got crossed up here.
This is a cool story though, because so you have wolves.
That's just mean, man. Damn.
you have wolves and coyotes in Yellowstone out west competing. They're interacting. Their habitats are overlapping. Western coyotes are typically smaller than our coyotes, but our eastern coyotes here, they don't have that competition with wolves, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have wolves. And so what we find is they've kind of whatever you want to call it, taken over the area and established themselves as a top species, but still mainly hunting rabbits and mice. There's some data that shows that they take some deer falling every now and then, especially there's an area in South Carolina. But for the most part, they're not as helpful to us as far as deer population as you would think. Which maybe we do need to think about bringing another predator in. Like the cougar or something.
A cougar? I mean, are we overpopulate with deer?
I think we have a deer population problem.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Think so? Because you could, but if they do, let's say that we do have a deer population problem, shouldn't they give out more tax to the hunters to help eliminate that?
I think they've tried that. I think
problem?
they've tried to extend the
hunting season,
and just can't keep up.
that I mean, are just deer just going at it, or what's going on? I mean, those are
Well,
some
they have
horny
they have a
folks.
perfect environment to thrive. White-tailed deer love suburban landscape. I mean, they got all the fresh grass they want. No predators really.
That is a good point. I've never thought about
They
that.
they live right on the edge of the forests and suburban America. I mean, that's their perfect area, and that's the United States is turning into that,
Right.
and that population is just exploding. I think the last thing I read said about 100 years ago we were down to 500,000 to 1 million deer across the entire United States. And that includes mule deer and whitetail deer.
Really?
And now we're up to about 40 million?
Whoa!
40 million whitetail, and then another 20, I believe, mule deer
And how much time span?
in 100 years.
Whoa!
So
I mean, that's huge.
a good point. Some animals do really well in what we might call fragmented landscapes where people are building developments.
Yeah.
Coyotes obviously
Yeah,
do
they're one.
really, really well. They can survive. They can hide in green spaces or green fragments. They can,
Right.
and the reason why is because they can run solo. They can run in pairs. They can run in 2 or more packs. Right.
Okay.
Wolves can't do that. Wolves are strictly social animals. A lone wolf, you're as a lone wolf, you're in danger.
I was gonna say they'll die or be killed.
Right, it's
or,
a dangerous place to be as a lone wolf. I mean, we talked about cougars, mountain lions don't do well in fragmented landscapes just because they're very territorial and their home range is so large. And yeah, you don't want to see one of those big cats running through your backyard anyway.
right.
Dude, if I ever get lost in the woods, I need Parks and Michael Kilpatrick, because Parks is going to tell us where it's safe from all these, predatory animals. And then Michael Kilpatrick, he's a survival, so to speak. But he is going to be able to make fire from duct tape and a Q-tip, and we'll be able to filter water.
But just know, I will provide nothing.
Okay, I am useless.
Well,
to you.
you'll be food if you're
Oh
out
yeah,
there
yeah,
long
yeah.
enough.
Don't worry, you'll eat me. After day 4, I'm like, just cut me, Parks.
I'll sacrifice myself.
So to answer your question, no, coyotes aren't a problem. They're
Okay.
here, and I mean, it doesn't matter if they're a problem or not. We're not getting rid of them. They're here to stay.
They're here to stay.
Yeah.
So, I think it's important that I've learned that maybe don't be so scared. Be more aggressive and try to get them away if I were to encounter one.
Yeah, you want to keep them scared, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep them paranoid. And I think that's where a lot of
They don't want me
a
to
lot
take my
of-
earrings out.
A lot of
'cause it's
people
gonna
run
be a
into
problem.
problems when they have. I mean, like the article in the paper several years ago, gentleman let his dog out. A lot of times you run into problems where you're having other animals out, and the coyotes. Maybe it's over some food. I think the coyotes had a deer falling out, and the dog ran straight up, just being a curious dog, and the coyotes attacked. So they see that as more as a competitor rather than predator prey.
I got you. Okay,
So
that makes sense.
so yeah, nothing to be scared of, but definitely, yeah. I mean, I guess there's no really management plan for coyotes in North Carolina, so you can take as many as you want. If
So
you're-
it's legal to shoot a coyote?
sure, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, just not inside state
Just not
city limits,
right in city limits. Of course, we'd never do that.
Right, you shoot as many as you want.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
However, there's interesting research that shows that coyotes under high persecution actually do better as far as breeding than coyotes not under high persecution. So yeah, go ahead and shoot as many as you want.
And see what happens.
right.
Go ahead.
Right.
That's right.
It's like gremlins in water.
I was getting ready to say that's exactly what I was going to say. It's like gremlins in water, man.
Yeah.
Right.
So getting back to you were saying something really interesting about in the book. There's a chapter about rabies and stuff like that you guys were talking about.
It was a chapter about coyotes.
And by the way, you and Bill wrote a book, and it's called Unlimited Value: Stories and Lessons from Yellowstone. And if somebody wanted to pick one of these bad boys up, where can they
you
get
can
it?
find it on Amazon.
Can they really?
Yeah, so we wrote it with the intention of it being a companion to our program,
Okay.
Project Yellowstone, which we're in the 10th year of this program. We basically, it's just a summer enrichment program that is open to anybody in the community. So you can sign
Really?
up and go with us, right? We run the program every June. It's usually typically the first week in June. We spend a week in Yellowstone. But we also reserve some slots. We keep some slots back for Mitchell students that are able to go on all expenses paid, so through a scholarship fund that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last last 10 years, we've been fortunate, and because of generous donors and people, we've been able to take 93 students, all expenses paid. That a lot of these students have never been out of Iredell County before.
Right.
And so we get them to the Charlotte airport and fly into Bozeman, Montana, and see some cool things. And so we spend time in the park, talking to researchers and viewing wildlife, grizzly bears, black bears, and interaction. So it's a way just to use Yellowstone as a backdrop instead of sitting in a classroom, but to learn about biological, ecological concepts. And so we wrote the book kind of just as a companion piece that we could have participants, hey, read this chapter, we're going to discuss this. But it's kind of cool in the middle of a 5 or 6 mile hike to just stop, and we see coyotes and badgers going at it, and we can kind of stop and say, hey, why are they doing this? Just asking questions, which is what science is, right? You're just asking questions. Which
That's right.
You may not ever have an answer. It may lead to more questions and more questions.
And proceeds from the book. It's not an expensive book. What is it? $9?
Oh, maybe between $6 and $7. But
on Amazon.
all proceeds are going toward the scholarship fund.
So it goes right back.
Yeah.
It just goes right back into the pot. Yeah,
right.
That's good, and it helps. Have you guys had any? Yeah, absolutely. Oh, you're fine. But you guys been doing this for 10 years,
Right.
Is that right?
Right.
And what have you learned from the kids going? What's one of the biggest things you would say the kids have taken away from being out there and doing research in Yellowstone for them? What's one of the big takeaways?
Oh, good question. I think the biggest takeaway and was kind of how we structured the whole program is just for students, but all participants, which have kind of turned into a lot of adults now, just to come away with an appreciation for nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know where I read this, but I saw something. Maybe it was 2008, 2009, right around the time when we started the program. There was some data that came out that said that kids were spending an average of 6.5 hours on electronic devices per day.
Is that not crazy?
Right, and not getting outside. And so I started thinking, like they're doing this, and then we're bringing them into a science classroom, and what are they doing? They're sitting in a desk, and we're trying to teach them these grand ecological concepts in a classroom. Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Why couldn't we?
You got to get out there and get your hands dirty.
Right.
You know,
there's nothing wrong with getting out in a greenway space. We do a lot of research on our greenways here, but I thought, man, why not think big and take them to our first national park, take them to Yellowstone. And so we made contacts with a lot of researchers, a lot of wildlife photographers out there, and thought, man, let's just do this program. Man.
And when you present that to them, I'm sure they're willingly, like with open arms, to accept you guys to come in to share the Yellowstone and to help these kids learn. Right, open up doors for them, and a whole pathway to learning.
Yeah, people are generous with their money. They're generous with their time, talking to us, taking us on hikes while we're out there, with no expectations. I mean, free of charge. We got one gentleman who we've been hiking with for 10 years, and he's a wildlife photographer and videographer. He does a lot of Nat Geo productions and BBC productions, and man, he spends an entire day with us. Just taking us around in the woods.
Yeah, I'll never forget. We're talking about Dan Hartman, and you can see his name rolls up in the credits on the Great Yellowstone Thaw, and maybe what's the other one he was involved with?
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. You can still catch the Yellowstone Thaw.
Yeah.
And it's on Netflix.
But he took us to this unbelievable great gray owl. I don't know if you know what a great gray owl is.
Bill, always assume I know.
Okay,
that.
all right. Well, around here we've got the bighorn owls, or is that what they're called? The
bighorn. Yeah, now I've heard of that.
So we have great horn.
Great horn. That's it. Great horn owls.
Barred
owls. Yeah. So a great gray owl is about what, twice the size?
Oh yeah.
I mean, they'll stand, I don't know, 2.5, 3 feet tall sometimes. Huge owls. You would never know it. And man, we just roll up, and when you hike with Dan Hartman, there is no trail. Mm-hmm. I mean, you get out of the vehicle. Doesn't matter if the grass is 4 foot tall or you're climbing over logs. he's going straight up the hill. He knows exactly where he's going, and you got to keep up. And then he'll stop and talk to you and say, "Listen to that. That was a whatever, some type of bird." And then he can just know by the way he's walking through the woods. And and you can check all this. You can see some videos of these owls that we saw on your website, right, Parks? What's that called?
Sure, it's a projectyellowstone.wordpress.com.
Yeah, and there's great video.
Yellowstone.wordpress.com.
Right, so we have summaries of the last 10 years, pictures, and
I'll put that in the description so folks can go and take a look at it.
Yeah, do that. And man, we rolled up on this nest, and there's the father and the mother sitting in two different trees, and there's three juvenile great gray owls just sitting there looking. And we're all mesmerized. They're flying from limb to limb, something you just don't see.
Right.
I mean, even out there, you don't see that. I mean, there are very few people that have gotten up close and personal with the great gray owl. And then you look down and you're covered in mosquitoes. You're like,
dude, I will never look at an owl the same since watching The Staircase on Netflix.
oh, no kidding. No, I can't believe it. I still don't believe that's the reason.
Dude.
That is,
why
cannot
is there
be.
an owl feather in her hair?
Yeah. You need to fill Parks in on
what
this.
you're talking about.
Okay, so there's this writer. At the time, he was pretty famous. He's from North Carolina. They lived in Durham. And, he and his wife supposedly were out by the pool. They were, enjoying the evening. They had a bottle of wine or whatnot. He's hanging out. She goes into the house in their mansion to do something. And 45 minutes, something like that, goes by. He comes in. She's at the bottom of the stairwell, bloodied, doesn't know what's happening. He calls 911. They show up. Oh, my God. She slipped and fell, hit her head. Well, then they start doing some more investigation, and long story short, he actually ends up going.
Yeah, he goes to jail for
prison,
murder.
like 20 years or something.
Yeah,
it's a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm not really going to ruin anything because then forensic. Actually, he ends up pleading. Did he plead guilty?
Yeah, well, he ended up getting out on that offered plea.
It's an offered plea, right? So he pleads. I can't.
It's guilty, but he's saying not. He's pleading guilty, but he's really saying no.
Right. Well, like with his fingers crossed.
Right. Exactly.
Just so he can get out of prison and go back and be with his daughters, who, by the way, all believe that he didn't do it.
Right.
And but then in the documentary, you find out there's this lady that he dated many years ago, which he's actually raising her daughter. That died in a similar manner. But then you also come to find out that the blood expert who sent him to jail actually was not even a blood expert, and lied about his credentials and had sent like 50 other people to jail over lying on the stand. And but then they found like she had like these scratch marks or really lacerations in her scalp, and they claimed that he beat her to death with a blow poke.
Yeah, blow poke
from the fireplace. But she had no skull fractures, no bruising to the scalp or anything like that. Just these lacerations. Well, I think they exhumed her body and re-examined her, and they found that she had these owl feathers tucked like in her hair. So the theory was that they had, was it a gray horn?
I think it was a barred owl.
A barred owl actually came in as she was entering the house and attacked her. When she fell down the stairs, that would explain the lacerations and the blood splattering everywhere.
And the feathers in her hands.
And the feathers in her hands and in her hair. Dude, I will never, number one, there's two takeaways. Number one, never trust an owl. And don't get in trouble in Durham.
No, you don't want to get in trouble in Durham.
Because your ass is going to jail.
Never trust. So that's funny.
Because you've been attacked by an owl.
No, I haven't. But just Saturday, just Saturday, right up the road here, there's a lady who had an owl box in her yard that fell out of the tree. So I don't know, it was rotten, but it fell out of the tree. I'm going to share this with you. But there was one chick in the box, so the chick stayed there on the ground, and so we repaired the box. Mother owl was watching, but she wasn't swooping down and clawing us. We repaired the box, put the box up back in the tree, and then shoved baby owl back in the box.
I'm gonna be honest with you. There's a part of this that's beautiful, and there's a part of this that's wigging me out.
It's pretty wicked. That chick right there, the talons were about an inch.
See,
long. They were,
and that's how. Guess what? She kills your wife, and you get framed for murder. The owl did it.
Well, just imagine an owl 3 times that size, and when they open up their wings, it's like a 5-foot wingspan. And they fly so silent you don't even hear them coming, and it's
beautiful, right?
Oh, it's gorgeous, and some of the some of the footage from these owls are actually in the Yellowstone documentary that Dan took.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. I mean, so that's just one of the people we hang out with. I mean, we've been on hikes with Dan where we took this was one of the first 2 years, I think, of the program when we were taking high school students from Statesville High School. And we went on a hike, and yeah, we didn't see any like crazy wildlife, but all of a sudden Dan says, well, look behind that tree. And all of a sudden one of the students pulls up this giant bighorn ran skull.
Yeah.
And, and then we're looking at different skulls from different animals all just out in the backcountry in Yellowstone. Really interesting stuff.
So I think appreciation. I mean, just seeing students go, wow, or coming up and going, hey, thanks for taking me on this. Or we had an encounter. There was a family of a pack of wolves that got separated by the road, and we're in a pull out in the road, and they're howling back and forth, which is pretty cool.
It was
awesome.
awesome.
Sitting in this large valley, and these wolves are howling.
I'm pretty sure that if I ever go with you, I'm wearing that police outfit where the dogs, they train them to bite you. Yeah, I'll be, that kid running around.
So we couldn't see the wolves, or they were far away. But a student just goes, Mr. Collins, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life. And I'm like, man. So the hope is, a guy named Freeman Tilden, who was head over the interpretation movement with park rangers, kind of said the hope is appreciation leads to understanding, and then understanding leads to conservation. Right? If you want to promote the idea of conserving our things like our national parks, then it has to start with appreciation.
Yes.
Right? Or it's not going to happen at all. So just appreciating nature, appreciating how ecosystems work.
And this goes back to what you're talking about earlier, and I know I've said this a lot of times on the show, and people try to hear it, but I travel a lot for work, and I saw people sitting at the dinner table, or not dinner table, but in the restaurant or in the airport, and their families or friends, they're all sitting around on their phones, they're not talking. 6.5 hours for a kid being on the screen and on the device and the machine. Let's put those things down. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk. Let's learn from one another. Let's get outside.
Which is the idea of this podcast, right?
It is. It's the idea of it.
Hey, so that's another thing that's cool that there's no signal in most of Yellowstone.
Yeah.
And then one city we stayed 4 nights in Cook City, Montana. Like, nobody has a cell phone because guess what? Cell phones don't work.
That's
and
right.
So that's crazy. So it's funny because students and participants, it'll take them about the first whole day where they're checking their phones and they're like, oh, forgot I didn't have signal. And then it's just kind of cool. You sit back and you
watch them detach.
And you got grizzly bears 1.5 miles away, and
they become engaged.
Right.
With what they're doing.
You can have a conversation. Right.
I got to tell you, we went. When my wife and I go out of town, I try my best to turn my work email off. But I can say this because I know she's not going to listen. But I'll go to the bathroom and I'll turn it back on. I'm like, okay, what did I miss? What did I miss? What did I miss? What's important? What's not? And it's like, okay, it's so hard to detach because the machine is here, which makes us so accessible,
right.
24 hours a day. And sometimes you just have to take a break from that. But it's also necessary evil because most of the people listen to this show or Little Toe and Frankie probably from streaming it from their device, using it, through the Bluetooth in their car, or sitting at work and listening on their headphones on a run or something like that. Mm-hmm. So they are a necessary evil in a way, but people really should take time to enjoy the things, nature that's around them. There's a lot of beautiful things, actually, if people would just look up when they're walking.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's an interesting topic, dichotomy there, because because we're doing most of our research with high tech trail cameras, so we're using technology there.
Oh yeah, but I mean, you can integrate it, right? It's like the show we had last week about vaccinations. People believe in vaccinations, people don't believe in vaccinations. There's a thought of some people only believe in Western medicine, some people only believe in Eastern medicine. You can actually intertwine those things together.
Let's talk about some new medicine.
Sure.
Okay, so you're a nurse, so we received, so this is part of undergraduate research, and it's kind of a way to take the research aspect from Project Yellowstone back to Mitchell. So we started in our lab working on bacteriophages this semester, which are viruses that solely infect bacteria. So we know viruses that we're common. I mean, we're used to viruses that cause us to get sick.
Oh yeah.
But viruses infect fungi. They infect plants. So these phages are viruses that infect bacteria. So we have students that are digging in the soil because we know that there are millions and millions of bacteria that live in the soil, and then even more viruses that infect those bacteria. So think about this: as far as biomass goes,
Yes, please.
they're by far the most of anything we have on the earth, but we don't know anything about these viruses. And so we had students actually dug up soil in the fall and took them through a process in our lab where they extracted the viruses from the soil.
Yep.
And then we extracted the DNA from the viruses and did some genomic work. So all this interesting stuff just to learn about new viruses. So we had students that discovered 8 new viruses to science. So they got to name them, they got to describe them, they got to publish some things about their research, which is really cool. But the coolest part of this program is this is kind of like a crowdsourcing research thing. Where there are about 150 schools in the nation. It's called CPhages.
How you spell that?
C-S-E-A.
You're going to have to write that down for me.
Phages.
Because we'll try to put that too on the description.
So, yeah, we can. So what it is students in all of those 150 schools are discovering these viruses, these phages. And there's one kind of main hub at the University of Pittsburgh. And so the lead investigator is big into what's called phage therapy. So I don't know if you've read much about this, but this is the idea of, let's say, MRSA, right?
Yes.
Or tuberculosis, some sort of antibiotic resistant superbug.
Yeah.
Well, why not use their natural predators, the viruses, to help treat the patient? So
Absolutely.
basically inject you with some phages. If we can find some, so that negative connotation with viruses makes people go, oh wait, what are you doing?
Right.
But so this is documented in the research, and phage therapy is about 100 years old, so it's old. But last week there was an article published in Nature about a 15-year-old girl at the UK in the UK who was cystic fibrosis. So she had a double lung transplant.
Oh wow.
And then she developed an antibiotic-resistant bacteria as a secondary infection.
Right.
So it was Mycobacterium, which is the same genus that tuberculosis is in. So this is a non-tuberculosis,
Right.
but it's Mycobacterium abscessus. So it went systematic. It went everywhere, right? So here's this 15-year-old about to die from this antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Well, the doctors contacted our program director and said, hey, can you look through your phage collection? 10,000 phages, look through them and see if you have anything that can fight this.
Yeah.
So we basically found 3 phages from our partner schools that students had just dug up from the dirt. 3 phages that in the lab showed that they could fight and kill this bacteria. And
The kids at Mitchell did this.
the kids at Mitchell were part of this program.
Part of
These
the program
3
that
phages
helped.
didn't actually come from our school, but they were
Right.
from partner schools, right?
Okay.
So sent the phages, did some genetic engineering work basically on some of these phages we don't need to get into, but sent them back over there, and they treated her with these. They treated the infection, basically cleared up the infection. So it's a crazy story. I mean, this phage therapy, this idea.
Is there you said this was published in Nature?
Yeah, it's published in Nature, so we can put that.
Is it like
link up.
nature.com or Nature? Can they find
this
it on
was
your
actually,
website or somewhere?
Yeah, you could search. It's just the journal Nature, which is one of, along with the journal Science, is
I
one
gotcha.
of the big scientific publishing.
But Mitchell, you guys are working through some like federal grant, right? It's a
So-
pretty significant grant.
So this program is sponsored through Howard Hughes Medical Institute.
Howard Hughes Medical
which
Institute.
is a big deal.
Yeah.
right? Lots of funding. So that's what's interesting. I mean, we have undergraduate students and even some early college students. So we would call them high school students that are involved in real research like this. They're not just sitting in a lab putting different dyes in water
Rotting
and looking
away
for
like
color
Joe the
change, right.
Volcano under the fluorescent lights.
They're doing real research, which is kind of what we try to get across in Yellowstone. Hey, look
Yeah.
at this real data. This stuff matters. People make decisions.
Well,
Management
yeah, I mean,
decisions.
you're learning about stuff that's truly changing someone's. I mean, that's helped save this little girl's life.
right.
Right. With medicine and what you guys are learning and creating, and new viruses are being discovered and whatnot. One of the, you and I saw each other in the coffee shop, and you were telling me this about the Hughes grant, about the viruses and what
Right.
you guys are learning. But what fascinated me about me being a Mitchell alumni, I think there's still a lot of people, and even including myself, that kind of give, I don't say Mitchell a bad rap because it's a community college, but there's a lot of good things that come out of Mitchell. And with your program here, and what you guys are doing, and going to Yellowstone and digging in the dirt and like truly getting, learning down to the core of dirt. I mean, in your diet, and you're finding these new viruses, and you're helping, you're doing this and that. I think that's helpful. And if there's people out there, listening, maybe they're not ready to go to a 4-year college. Maybe they're embarrassed to say, hey, I go to Mitchell. Or maybe they're like, I don't want to go to Mitchell because then I have to say I'm going to a community college. And there's like a stigma. Unfortunately, there's a negative stigma that comes with that. Maybe they'll hear this and be like, you know what? Yeah, it's okay. I'm going to go there. I'm going to learn a lot. And I may go on, to another 4-year college and get my degree there. So I think there's a lot of things that are going on at Mitchell that are positive that more people need to learn about and to be aware of.
Oh, sure. Yeah. There's absolutely zero reason why undergraduates can't do real research.
Absolutely.
Like
and even look at their nursing program. It's top 5 in the state.
Yeah.
In the state.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
Mitchell
there's
Community
great
College.
stuff going on there. Yep.
That's right. Alumni.
And you also have to think, there's been a lot of news about college tuition. Mm-hmm. Well, why would you not go and you can get out of Mitchell pretty much debt free?
Pretty much.
I mean, it's inexpensive to go there.
Right. It's affordable.
Why would you not do that to get your first 2 years? Even if you are wanting to do a 4-year program, get those 2 years under your belt, get all your English and math and all that basic stuff out of the way. Then go, if you want to go to a 4-year, go do that.
Sure.
And not be in debt.
There's something now with high school, right? Because you can do some extra stuff where you can actually graduate from high school with an associate's degree.
We have 3
Is that right?
early colleges that are associated with Mitchell. So this is interesting. So where basically the idea is you come in as a 9th grader and spend 5 years and come out with a high school diploma and a 2-year associate's.
Mm-hmm. Damn.
What a lot of people are doing, though, a lot of students, and so most of our research-based class on these viruses were early college students. So we're talking about 16, 17-year-old students. A lot of them are coming in, they're loading up on classes, and they're finishing the whole program in 4 years. So they're coming out with a 2-year associate's degree for free in 2 years, and they're a year ahead, basically, when they transfer to a... And then with this program, they're already they're published. They've got experience as a researcher.
Okay, for are you kids listening? I got a neighbor that lives across the street from me. His kid's 16 years old. He's a good kid. He helps me out some. And young Jamie, are you listening? Are you listening to this? You can for free, and you come out with all this education already in your back pocket. Man, why do they have this?
It's good for parents too.
I'm thinking about how much money I'm saving.
Yeah, exactly.
When I have the twins, this is happening.
Right.
We're doing it. You know what? There's no more cartoons. We're reading books. As a matter of fact, you're going to Parks' house.
You could have James Hogan could come on, who is our head of endowment, and talk just tons of stories, success stories about Mitchell and Mitchell students.
We should. I would absolutely love to do that because, again, I do think, and it's not just Mitchell. I think I could be wrong, and maybe things are changing, but people give community colleges a bad rap because you're stupid. You're not smart enough to go off to college, or you can't afford to go. People make fun. Where'd you go? I went to BYU, Backyard University. I went to MIT. Oh, Mitchell in town. I've said all those jokes too, but you got to get past that, right? You got to let that roll, move on.
You get to a certain part of your life, and you're like, oh, those were the smart kids.
Well, in a way, they were, right?
Yeah, they were the ones that were using their common sense.
They were using some common sense. Yeah. But haven't you guys, as we've gotten older, do you not think like common sense really isn't that common anymore?
My wife and I have these conversations all the time. We look at each other and go, are we geniuses, or are people really that? You know what I mean? Have you ever had that? You ever thought like that?
No, I haven't. Honestly, Parks, you've literally known me since I was like single digit age.
Okay.
But you've never looked at me and been like, Brandon, he's pretty wicked smart. No, never. But I actually look at myself and I go, am I an idiot? That's more, am I?
Okay.
Am I the dumb one here? Or does this not make sense?
That's the same thing.
Right. Yeah. I see what you're saying. But no, I've never thought, if I'm the smartest guy in the room, we are in trouble. Okay? Just know we're in trouble.
Right. No, Bill can say that. I mean, that's what's impressive, especially about taking some of these Mitchell students to Yellowstone. How, man, there are some sharp students. Just and what's cool is the way we've set up the program. I mean, you have these, and this is cool about the community college too. This community feel. I mean, there's really a community feel where you have this kind of intergenerational thing going on. You have these people from the community who are in the workforce and they're doing things for the community, and you have these community college students, and everybody's out there interacting together.
But now, will you guys? I think what you're doing though is you're making it fun. You know what I'm saying? It's not as stuffy like you were going back to. People listening to this, and then people who know about the program and whatnot. I think because you make it interactive and you make it hands-on. When it was like in nursing school, the book work was awful. I'm a horrible book student, but I have to touch it, I have to feel it, I have to do it. I have to have tactile, right? I have to go out there and actually put what you're teaching me here. You can throw a million words at my face, and my face is just like numb from what you're saying. I don't, at some point, I stop absorbing. Because what is it? After a certain amount of time, we'll absorb like 20 to 30% of the information that's being thrown at us. And for someone like myself, it's more like 3%. So I need to go out there and I need to touch the patient, start the IV, do this, do that, listen to a real person's lungs and all that other jazz. And I feel like it would have to be the same for the guys in the classroom when you're learning about this stuff. You're like, get out of the book. Let's get out there and get dirty and learn.
Well, and I think that's the idea behind this whole push toward undergraduate research or experiential learning is a good term that you hear a lot. I mean, especially with programs like this Yellowstone program, where we know nursing schools, medical schools, they've been doing this well. Community colleges as a whole have been doing this well for a long, long time.
Sure. Training,
whether it's welding or electrical engineering, but like as just like a science department, we really like if we're training students to be scientists. Why are they sitting? And I understand bookwork's important, but why is that all they're doing?
Right.
Why not go out and be a scientist? Which I think is what we try to do with Project Yellowstone. Allow these participants to be scientists and do what scientists do.
Now, Bill, do you teach at Mitchell?
No, I work for the NCDOT.
So how did you guys?
I was a participant. I think the second year.
How did we meet, Bill?
Your
swiped
little
right.
brother, I believe. What was Andrew?
Did you swipe right?
He swiped right.
I don't remember.
That's what happened.
I have no idea. No clue.
I think we met. I think we started playing. We started playing
Disc golf.
together.
That's right.
Did you really?
A long
Yeah.
time ago, man. We were before. This was before kids. We played a heck of a lot of.
2 or 3 times a week. I went today for the first time in probably 5 years. It was not pretty.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Hey, it
it's
got
bad.
so bad. Bill made like little wooden plaques or something, like 1, 2, 3. Like we seeded, and like whoever won that would get the number one. Like that's how
we were
it was
serious
legit,
about
man.
disc
I
golf.
like it. I think, I've actually never had the great opportunity to meet you personally. I'm glad we
Yeah.
got to do this tonight, but it seems like whatever you're into, you're passionate about.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about several things.
We're going to get into one of those things later that I could benefit nothing from.
Oh.
As you can see.
Yeah.
But we'll chat about that too. But you work for the DOT.
Yeah,
And,
and-
you were a participant in this program.
I
and
was. I
that's-
think I met Parks, and we were just friends. And he was started this program second year. He was taking all Statesville High School students at that time because he was teaching at Statesville High School. And he said, "You want to go?" It's kind of like a mentee thing. And so they would take 6, I believe, high school students and 6 adults from the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went and had a blast. I met some great kids, and they're all probably 30 years old now. I have no idea. They're up there. They're grown-ups now. But I had a great time. He said, "You want to go back again next year and drive?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I'll drive." And then now I've been every year since.
And you guys camp outside, I'm assuming.
No.
You do not camp outside.
No, that's what makes
Okay,
it great.
this is getting better. All
That's
right,
what
now-
makes it great.
Now
Yeah.
I'm getting better. I like to camp at the Marriott. All right.
No, well, we stay at Antlers Lodge in Cook City, which is a little lodge.
Sounds like the food's amazing already.
There's several great food places around in Cook City. Probably our favorite place is a place called the Bear Claw, which is a breakfast and lunch place / snowmobile repair shop. So it's both, but the food is
Their salmon
phenomenal.
bagels are awesome.
Oh, they've got like cuisine.
Seriously, yeah.
And then you can buy a part for your snowmobile right one counter over. It's top notch, and they have a fox that comes up to the door every morning. They feed it an egg.
Get outta
They'll
here.
give it an egg.
Dude.
2 years ago or 3 years ago, we went in there and a black bear had just broken into the front door.
Does the fox have a name?
I
How
don't
do
think
we
so.
name it, man?
Mangy is what
Mangy.
I call it. But yeah, man. So and then I've been going ever since and fell in love with the place and the trip. It's just a great experience. I see something new every year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never the same trip twice. We've had several participants that have gone 2 times. They'll go a year, take a year off, go the next year, just because they're like, man, we got to get back there. So,
My wife is in.
she would be all.
You all
in
should
doing
go.
that. We would
So
love to.
If
Yeah.
anybody's out there and wants to,
Okay. And how they get in touch with you for that?
they can get in touch with me a couple of ways. Probably the best way is just emailing.
Okay.
It's just P Collins, COLLINS.
We're gonna have to write that one down too.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to take that
Yep.
whole sheet.
At mitchellcc.edu. Yeah. So the trip typically fills up pretty fast.
Right, because and again, tell them how many slots are there.
We take 12 slots, and then we hold back about 4 for Mitchell scholarship
Yeah.
students. But yeah, it's hotel style accommodations, at
Okay.
these lodges.
I'm feeling better about it.
So yeah, camping out there is great, but it's a hassle trying to get all the gear out there, everything you would.
Oh
need.
yeah, I'm sure. I had Stuart Kincaid on the show, and he hiked the Appalachian Trail, and he
Yeah.
talked about it. And we had Michael Kilpatrick with the NC Lighthouse, teaching kids how to go out in the wilderness and survive for like 3 days if you could.
Right.
And and I have good intentions, okay. But if and I mean it. Like I think like I see an RV, I want to buy an RV, I want to pull it behind the truck. And I just watched the movie RV with Robin Williams, and I'm like, "Yep, that's me." It's gonna happen. Murphy's Law. But Bill, you brought looks like a picture back there of Yellowstone or something. And what's that?
So this is a giant raised relief map of Yellowstone National Park, which, I mean, this place is huge. We got Yellowstone Lake down here. We got the geyser area right up in here. Then up here in the northern part of the park, you see the Lamar Valley, which is basically the Serengeti of the Western Hemisphere. I mean, if you see pictures of Africa and all these herds of wildebeest, this is basically what the Lamar Valley is, but with bison and predators and prey. It's very similar. So I brought that along, and Parks brought in some
Predators like this. Check this
like
out.
that one.
Dude, this has got to be. Is this
It's the back
Bigfoot?
leg of a grizz.
This is the. For those at home, I don't know if you can see, but his foot
Put your face up.
is the size of my face.
Yeah.
So something like this.
Would what? How much does this animal
400
weigh?
pounds, I think. What's that one say? They say 400, I think.
450 pounds in an average adult 5 or more years old.
So that's a big bear. So what do you do if a bear's charging? That bear that size is charging.
Man, just pray. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. They say to
You
scream
handle
and
that.
yell.
You take
What is
that.
this?
That's what
What's
you would
this?
do.
That's bear
Don't
spray.
spray it in here.
Don't spray it.
So this is so this is real. This
Yeah.
is bear spray.
That's real bear spray. We carry that. We do have to think about
Yeah, you got to be
interacting
safety
with
first, man.
bears, even though we're in a big group. So we've got 14 people walking, and we'll usually bears won't come near you when you're that big a group, because you sound like a herd of bison coming through the woods. I mean, you're not quiet. You're not going to sneak up on a bear when you have that many people. So pretty much we'll keep a can of bear spray in the front, a can of bear spray in the back, and we're safe. I mean, we've never had to use it. So luckily,
I
knock
hope
on-
you never.
I hope so too.
never have to use
I don't.
that.
I don't want to either.
So, and when is the next trip to Yellowstone scheduled?
So we're leaving this year, June 7th.
So
be
this
out
year's
there.
full.
This year's full,
Okay.
right. And then 2020, it'll be around the same time. We haven't set a date. We'll set a date usually pretty in August, around the end of August, and it'll be on the website.
Okay.
And so if you'd like, you can contact me and get your name on the waiting list for 2020. And
Yeah, absolutely.
Usually registration starts around September.
Got to find a babysitter, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's the youngest kid you've had to go?
14.
Let me think. 13. 13.
13?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, Parks, I appreciate, and Bill, what you guys are doing. I appreciate you guys. Oh, before I wrap this up,
I want to talk about your beard butter. real quick.
Yeah, real good beard butter. I've rebranded. Oh yeah, he's got some lip balm.
Oh, look at here.
He's got a little bit of
he's got a little bit of real good.
lip balm there. But
You make that yourself.
well, my wife and I started the company. I make the beard butter.
Okay.
The real good beard butter. We also have 5 different kinds of soap.
Yeah.
We have beard oil and pre-shave oil. So the beard oil doubles as a pre-shave oil. So we're not leaving out the clean-shaven man
It's
or
not
lady
shaving, brother. I can't
or
grow
lady
it.
or lady. Oh, so that's just you don't
this-
shave.
Well, so I shaved Friday.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you got some stubble going. You're looking.
That's 5 days ago, dude.
That's all right.
I shave once a week. I shave my face once a week.
Well,
I
you
have to
need
shave
a-
my
yeah.
mustache every day.
Yeah.
But the neck, nah.
No, I got
I
you.
grow this really sweet Amish beard. This whole neck
That's okay.
mange thing.
That's
Yeah, it's
okay.
cool.
I couldn't grow a beard until I turned 40. So are you close?
I'll be I just turned 39.
Yeah, it took that long. I needed to get some gray going before
So
I
where
could
can
really-
folks pick up the real?
Right now, pretty well anywhere on Broad Street in
Okay.
downtown Statesville. I'm working on a website. I'm actually working on that now, realgoodsoap.net.
Okay.
And so that'll be out soon, too. So
Would you be do me the honor of when you get everything squared away and when
Yeah.
you're ready to come back on the show?
I would love
'Cause
to,
I would love
man.
to do an entire segment about what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, I'd love
Let him
to.
shave you.
You can actually shave me.
Okay,
We,
that's awesome.
I've never done that, but I'll tell you
Well-
what we should do is hire a real barber to come in and shave you.
You
You
know
ever
what?
had
I'll
a shave?
figure it out. I have. I've had two. One
Oh,
in
there you go.
Manhattan for our 1 year
There you
wedding
go.
anniversary. I wanted a legit one, which I did, and then I had another one here in Statesville that didn't go so well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, look, I got shot with a buckshot like 3 hours later. So, but listen, I appreciate you guys coming on. Everyone, check out the book. It's Unlimited Value, Stories and Lessons from Yellowstone, Parks Collins and Bill Day. All the proceeds go to help these guys and other students go back out to Yellowstone year after year. As you heard today, they're doing great things, and I appreciate you, Parks, and everything that you're doing at Mitchell. And everybody check it out. We'll post everything on the podcast and on YouTube. And so everybody can check it out. And I appreciate you guys coming on,
Thank you
man.
for having us.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Brandon. Appreciate it.
Everybody, we
Appreciate it. Thank you to States Vegas Clothing Company for providing me with all of my shirts this year. Thank you to Kasey.tate at Farm Bureau, and thank you to Dustin McCrary Law. And last but not least, thank you to Hunk of Junk Hauling. One call removes it all. Thanks, guys. See you soon. Bye.